Hi everybody, Miss Kimberly here from the Youth Services Department at the Algonquin Public Library, here for our final book talk for the 2022 Illinois Book Awards. And today we're going to be talking about the remaining 12 Caudill books that we haven't gone over yet. Miss Jen talked about some for you in one video. Miss Holly talked about some in another video. And today I'm going to go over the last 12. So we're just going to jump in and get started. So the first book on our list is called Orange for the Sunsets. And the summary is, in alternating voices, friends Asha and Yusofu, one Indian and one African, find the world turned upside down when Idi Amin decides to expel Asian Indians from Uganda in 1972. So obviously this is historical fiction taking place in 1972, and given current world events with refugee issues in Syria and Ukraine and other parts of the world, this is a very timely book to sit down and read. And I thought it was really interesting because it touches on a piece of history that you probably know nothing about. I had no idea that there was a significant Asian Indian population in Uganda in the 70s and that they were forcibly removed from the country by the military. I had no idea. The things you learn when you read. So this book is by Tina Athaide, and she is an African author, and she is telling this story because it is one that is very close to her heart. So definitely check it out if you want to learn a lot more about a little piece of history that you probably had no idea even happened. Our next book really makes me giggle. This book is called Be Prepared. All Vera wants to do is fit in, but that's not easy for a Russian girl in the suburbs. Her friends live in fancy houses, and their parents can't afford to send them to the best summer camps. Vera's single mother can't afford that sort of luxury, but there's one summer camp in her price range, Russian summer camp. Vera is sure she's found the one place she can fit in, but camp is far from what she imagined, and nothing could prepare her for all the cool girl drama, endless Russian history lessons, and outhouses straight out of nightmares. This is a really funny and really honest book that has a lot of moving parts too about what it's like to be trying to live on that bridge between two cultures. Vera is Russian but doesn't necessarily feel very Russian. Most of her friends are not. And she finds herself at this summer camp with people that she shares a language with, but she's not great at it and she doesn't love speaking it. And the Russian way of doing things is very extreme. But it is really, it has some great artwork. You can see it is a graphic novel. So, and Vera finds herself, trying to make friends with maybe not the right kind of people and experiencing some bullying at the camp, and she makes some mistakes. There's a part where she, steals some candy and gets all the other girls in trouble. But it's a really, really cute book, and it will make you laugh, and it will, again, teach you about another culture. Okay, this next one also has to do with culture. It's by Christine Day. It's called I Can Make This Promise. And this is a book about Edie. She's 12 years old, and she has always known that she has Native American heritage, but her mother was adopted. And then she finds letters and photographs in her attic that change everything she thought she knew about her heritage, her mom's adoption, etc. And she realizes she has a lot to learn about her family's identity and her own identity. And this was an American Indian Library Association Youth Literature Award medalist. I really liked it because it has a Native American protagonist, which is not one that's not a perspective we get to see very often. But she's a Native American protagonist who is trying to learn more about herself and about her mom and about her family history. And so it ties into the other two books of learning about a culture that's different than yours, but you get to take that journey with the narrator, which I think was really interesting. And it also, if you like books about adoption and identity, this is a really good choice. So this next one is kind of pivoting to a more serious tone. This one is an interesting book. This is by Barbara D., and it's called Maybe He Just Likes You. And this is a story also timely, given the issues with bullying that have been happening in schools for the past few years, about a girl that is getting bullied by a group of boys, but no one seems to really take her seriously about it and understand how uncomfortable it's making her. So when the boys in her class start touching 7th grader Mila and making her feel uncomfortable, she doesn't want to tell her friends or her mother until she reaches her breaking point. And then once she hits that breaking point and lashes out and gets some help, she realizes that she had all of these resources available to her. So this book, there are parts of it that I was reading that definitely made me feel uncomfortable, because the bullying that she experiences isn't like the typical bullying you might expect. It's very almost sort of passive-aggressive bullying, and this group of boys really working hard to make her feel as uncomfortable as possible. And then she has her friends, on the other hand, saying, well, he's just flirting with you. You don't even know what flirting is. So the book brings up some serious issues about self-confidence in girls. At one point, Mila starts taking karate, and it really boosts her self-confidence, and consent, not touching people if they don't want to be touched. And like I said, some of it is definitely uncomfortable. It'll maybe give you a bad feeling in your stomach when you read it, but the ending is a happy ending, and it is definitely a book worth checking out. This next book is by an author that I've read before, and I really like him. His name is Dan Gemeinhart, and this is The Remarkable Journey of Coyote Sunrise. And the summary is 12-year-old Coyote and her father rush to Poplin Springs, Washington in their old school bus to save a memory box buried in a park that will soon be demolished. So Coyote's dad and herself, they live in a school bus and they drive all over the country. And at first that seems very lighthearted and like it would just be kind of a fun adventure that this dad and daughter do together. But you find out that her dad sort of made this decision to do this journey after her mom and her 2 sisters were all killed in a car accident. So they lost essentially half their family. And her dad is a bit out of his mind with grief, and this is how he's dealing with it. And then Coyote finds out that the park by their old house where they used to live is going to be demolished, and she and her mom and sisters had buried a memory box there back when they were still alive, and she doesn't want to lose that box. So she's trying to convince her dad to go back without actually telling him that that's what they're doing. And on the way back, they end up meeting a bunch of other oddballs on the road just like them and making some great friendships. And it's a really moving story. Dan Gemeinhart writes really excellent books about kids who are dealing with really tough issues, who do a great job sort of seizing control of their own narrative. So he's an excellent writer. And obviously it deals with death of a close family member and then grief and healing. And if you like a good road trip story, because there are lots of lighthearted moments in this one, this is a great book. All right, our next one is a nonfiction. It's the only nonfiction I have to talk to you about today. And it's called Torpedoed, The True Story of the World War II Sinking of the Children's Ship. And it's by Deborah Heiligman. And she also wrote Vincent and Theo, and she won some awards for that book. So obviously this is about World War II, and what happened was, this is a true account of the attack and sinking of the passenger ship SS City of Benares, which was evacuating children from England during World War II. So during World War II, London was being blitzed by the German army, which means that there were bombs going off all the time. London was, for the most part, destroyed by these blitzes in the 1940s. And lots of people in London were sending their children either north to like more rural parts of the UK, or they were sending them across the ocean to Canada and America with family that they had there. And so this boat had several hundred people on it, and it had 90 children, and the Germans torpedoed this boat, and they killed 77 of the 90 children. So it's not a lighthearted book at all, but it does have some really dramatic twists and turns, and there are a lot of stories in here of people who didn't realize that they were going to be heroes who ended up being heroes. So the book has a lot of illustrations, like drawn pictures, but then it also has these photographs of what the ship looked like. It might remind you a little of like pictures of the Titanic. And it's just a really great, there's one of the drawings. a really great retelling of what happened and how those children perished and what the consequences were of that happening. So, very sad true story. All right, this next book is one that I'm actually reading with the Page Turners Book Club in March, which is my book club for 5th to 8th graders, and you should sign up. So this book is called From the Desk of Zoe Washington. You can see it looks very lighthearted, and on one hand it is. This is a story about Zoe, and she is a baker. She loves to bake. She's an avid baker, and she is up for an internship and a spot on a Food Network show that's about baking, like kids baking. And she's super excited about it. And then she, on her 12th birthday, she receives a letter from her biological father, who she's never met. She lives with her mom and her stepdad, and he is in prison for committing a terrible crime. I'm not going to tell you what the crime is, but he says he didn't do it. And he sends her this letter saying that I am innocent and this, this is what actually happened. And Zoe is desperately trying to uncover the truth about what exactly happened. And she's trying to balance that with her upcoming internship and getting on this baking show, and doesn't want her mom and her stepdad to know that she's investigating what happened with her dad, and so on and so forth. So it for such a thin, cheerful looking book, it does have some serious themes for sure, because her dad is incarcerated, and that's a very serious thing. But it's a really cute book, and Zoe is a great protagonist, and I think you'd really like it. And this one is by Janae Marks. Next is kind of a weird book. It's a little weird. This book is called Inkling, and it's by Kenneth Apple, who has written a whole bunch of sort of fantastical novels. The Silverwing series, and then the series that's about the evil plants. Well, in this one, Kenneth Apple has created an ink blob that is alive. And so it's a very odd but touching story about an ink blob who comes to life to try to help out this family. So he's trying to teach the main character, Ethan, how to draw, because Ethan lacks a lot of self-confidence in that area. And he's trying to get Ethan's dad back to work. And this one also has some serious undertones because Ethan's mom has passed away. So another character who lost their mother. And so Inkling is also helping the family to heal and come back together after this really tragic loss. So I'm going to show you some of the art. There's art throughout. One thing I actually thought was cool is on the side here. You can see it's let me flip out this way, black. Those are the little ink stains on the pages, which I thought was a really cute touch. But there's art on just about every page. But this is an example of one of the giant pictures that Inkling makes in Ethan's house. And that gorilla can move and stuff. So again, kind of a strange concept, but it's a very sweet story. And if you like books that are a little bit weird, I think you'd like this one. Pivoting back to another serious topic. This book, I skimmed this one. I have not read it all the way through yet. And just skimming it, I thought the writing was absolutely fantastic. This is by Jewel Parker Rhodes, and it's called Ghost Boys. And this is a very heavy book, I'm not going to lie to you. This is about 12-year-old Jerome, and he was playing with a toy gun outside his apartment complex, and someone called the police, and the police showed up and shot him and killed him. So Jerome is now a ghost, and he's witnessing the grief of his family, and he's witnessing what the officer and his family are going through, and there's some information about the court, but he also realizes that he can see the ghosts of other young African-American boys who have been unjustly killed throughout history, including Emmett Till. So, and this is roughly based on a true story. A few years ago in Ohio, there was a 12-year-old boy who was playing with a toy gun outside his apartment complex and was shot and killed by the police. So this book was a little bit written in honor of him. So it is a heavy book. It is a beautifully written book, and I think there's a lot to love here, but it's definitely not a sunshine and roses kind of situation. So just so you're aware. All right, this next one is one of my favorite covers. I just think these girls are so adorable, and the whole story is so adorable. And what happens is these two girls, they are both being raised by single dads, and their dads start dating, and they send them to the same summer camp. And at first they're like, nope, this is not working for me. They don't really get along. And then by the end, they have become really good friends. And they're super excited that maybe they'll get to be stepsisters, and then their dads break up. and they're devastated, and they hatch a plot to get their dads back together. And the whole story, this is an epistolary novel, which means the entire thing is written in emails and letters. So it looks like this. So it actually it reads pretty quickly because there's a lot of white space and line breaks. On this page, one of the dads has started dating someone named Bob, and the girls are freaking out like he's way too cool to date somebody named Bob. What is happening? And it's just darling. It's just a really, really cute book about friendship and love and these two girls who are just really determined to get their dads back together. So super duper cute. And that one is by Holly Goldberg Sloan and Meg Wolitzer. They wrote it together. Okay, 2 more. This next one is called The OK Witch. This is also super duper cute, lighthearted. It is by Emma Steinkellner. It's another graphic novel, which means it reads real quick. And this is about 13-year-old, and I love her name. This is my favorite character name, I think, of this entire list. 13-year-old Moth Hush, that's her name, Moth Hush, learns she comes from a long line of witches. She unlocks a hidden witch world where secrets from generations past unravel and the heart of her town and her family are threatened. So Moth finds out she's a witch sort of on accident. Her mom left the witch community when she was a baby and moved them to this town to try and have a normal life. And Moth accidentally unlocks these secrets, and her grandma ends up showing up, and there's a talking cat, which made me think of, you guys are probably too young to know, but made me think of Sabrina the Teenage Witch and her talking cat. So this is where they find out that their cat has been, his body's been taken over by someone that they used to know, so that person is reincarnated as their cat. So that's fun. But it's just so cute. The art book is just absolutely darling, and it's bright, and there's a lot of dialogue in the bubbles, but it reads so fast, and it's just a super cute little fantasy story about a witch who's just kind of okay at being a witch. So our last one is called Clean Getaway, and this is by Nick Stone, and he also wrote Dear Martin. Which was a book that got a ton of praise and buzz back when it came out. And this is my second favorite character name. This character's name is William Scoob Lamar. Everybody calls him Scoob. He cannot seem to stay out of trouble. And now run-ins at school have led to lockdown at home. So when Grandma, it's written as G''MA, which I think would be like Gma, but I'm going to say Grandma. Scoob's favorite person on earth asks him to go on an impromptu road trip. He's in the RV faster than he can say freedom. And if you can see what he's holding here, he's holding the Traveler's Green Guide, the Green Book, which has gotten quite a bit of, it's kind of come back into the public consciousness in the past few years because there was an Oscar-nominated movie called The Green Book. And what the Green Book was, it was a real thing that African Americans in the South used to keep track of places that were safe for them to stay when they were going around the South, because there were a lot of places, obviously, back in the day, especially when segregation was still legal, where it was not safe for Black people to stop and spend the night or stop and get gas. And so the Green Book was a list of all the places that were safe, places that you could, get a hotel, places that you could eat. And it was a really important resource for African American people back then. So his grandma gives him, she brings this book along with them, and they sort of follow this trail, and he learns a lot about himself and a lot about his grandma and her past, and what African Americans of previous generations had to go through, and how strong and resilient they were. And it's just a really good book, and you'll learn something when you read it, but it's also a very entertaining story. Scoob, just the fact that you get to read the word Scoob like multiple times on every page, like he's a really interesting, dynamic character. So those are the Rebecca Caudill books for the 2022 list. The 2023 list will be dropping soon. I can't wait to book talk those next year for you guys, hopefully in person. That would be great. I would love to book talk them in person now that some of the COVID restrictions are lifting. But until then, I hope everyone is safe and well and has a great rest of your school year. Thank you.